Okay, so hello Emma.
Hi.
Tell me, why are you here today?
So I decided to come because I have some issues with my mom, and it's been getting to a point where it's just like unsustainable, and I think I need like external help to um, figure out how to cope with all that.
Okay. So you mentioned that it was unsustainable. What does that mean to you?
Well, it means like it has gotten to a point where like I can't emotionally I can't handle it anymore. It's like it's just too much with everything else that I have in my life right now. It's just too much emotionally.
Okay. So what are the emotions that you have regarding this? Because you said that it's too much emotionally, and you
Right.
emphasized that. So could you give me more details about that?
Yeah. Well, what I mean, what I feel at that moment, it's like I don't know. She frustrates me a lot. She makes me angry because she's really unjust,
Okay.
unfair. That's the word. She's really unfair, and it's kind of like she makes up the rules as we go,
Okay.
and that always like ends up uh, like turning the tables for me and like being like, oh, it's all your fault when I originally didn't do anything, or um, I don't know. It feels like I guess it would be like a feeling of not being enough, like a constant feeling of not being enough, because she's constantly reminding me of the things that I'm not doing, or the things that I'm not, or the things I'm doing wrong.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay, so you're telling me about this unsustainable thing that you mentioned before emotionally, and you said that you perceive that your mom is unfair in the things that she said, even though you're not doing anything. She gets reminding you these things of insufficientness
Yeah.
that you're feeling right now. Could you give me more details about this unfair concept that you mentioned before?
Yeah. So it's like, for example, how do I say this? Like, so sometimes she would come back from work, um, like in a really bad mood. And for example, I will not be home um, yet, but then like we talked about it before that I was gonna be there later, and so it's fine. So it was supposed to be fine. Like we agreed that was like the deal, and then as soon as I come back home, she's like, "Oh, why are you here so late?" And like I didn't give you like permission to be out until this time, and all that crap. And I was like, "But we talked about it before." And she's like, "Oh, you never listened to me," and like, like making up a fight of something that we actually talked about earlier.
Okay.
So,
And how does that fight in the example you gave me develop? So what are your thoughts about it? What do you say when that happens? What are
well,
your reactions?
yeah. Well, in the moment, my reactions, like I try to stay calm at the beginning,
Okay.
and just like be reasonable and be like, "Okay, we talked about it before. Do you remember? Like, at whatever time in the day." And I don't know, she would just like get very, like she would be angry and she would just not listen to anything I say. So I get frustrated too, and like be angry, and like sometimes we would even like end up, I wouldn't say screaming at each other, but really like talking very, very loud.
Okay.
Yeah. And depending on the day or on the fight or the whatever. Sometimes she would come up with some other issues in my life. She'd be like, like, but your grades are not okay, or like the way you dress is not okay. And just when that happens, I just like go like, okay, mom, like, and I just leave and go to my room, and yeah.
Okay, so you have talked to me about the details about how the fight develops and what topics or matters she come to the conversation, she brings up to the conversation. And have you ever had this kind of fights before, or where does this fight started?
Hmm. Well, I feel like we've had these fights since I became a teenager. Like
Okay.
when I was little, she would, like, thinking back on it now, it's like, yeah, she was very unfair before too, but I was more like willing to just do what she says and like accept what she was saying and just like say sorry or whatever. But when I became a teenager, it was more like me answering back when actually something was not okay, and just like, how do I say this, like I started also, you know, like experimenting with appearance and all those things. And so there was a time when, for example, like my appearance was very feminine and like the dresses and stuff, but then like I realized I didn't buy into that anymore.
Okay.
So like I changed my appearance, and I think at that point it got worse than what already was happening. So yeah, and like now with the pressure of like ending university and like all that, it's being like just
It
the
started
worst.
again.
Yes,
Yeah.
or it never really stopped. It just
Okay.
got worse.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you mentioned before that, and you mentioned before that you consider that these unfair situations happen also when you were a child. Give me more details about how was these unfair situations that you mentioned.
Well, it would be like, I guess, I would call it inconsistent.
Okay.
More than, well, I guess, I don't know. Like for example, I'm thinking of any specific situation where like sometimes, like you know, I would be playing with my brother and all that when we were kids, and I don't know, we would knock off something like a plate or like a, you know, like a decoration or whatever, and it would break. Because my mom has a lot of decorations that are very breakable.
Okay.
So, for example, something would break, and sometimes she would be like calm about it, and she would be like, well, like, okay, just bring me the glue and like we'll fix it. But sometimes she would be very angry about it and like scream at us, and maybe even like smack us in the arm or something like that. So it was kind of like you never knew what kind of reaction you were gonna get, so you never knew really what, like how bad was it, the thing that you did, you know?
Okay. So you would say that this inconsistent, as you said, is still happening and it got worse with the years.
Mm-hmm.
You also mentioned that she she inf- has these reactions over your appearance, and you've changed your appearance, and you've been experimenting about that. What do you think that this is thing that makes her start these kind of fights or yeah.
Yeah. So I think, well, I don't think she said
Okay.
that like she doesn't, how do you say, like in her words, she doesn't agree with all this sexual and gender diversity thing.
Okay.
Like she's like, I do not agree, I don't believe in this. And it's like, well, it's not something you believe in, it's something that like exists, and like you can choose not to see it, but like exists anyway. And she's like, I think, well, it's mostly like ignorance, because she's always like telling me like, oh, why like with a haircut, like you look like a man, are you gonna like, you know, like start being masculine and become one? And I don't know, like she doesn't understand the concept of, maybe this is just my appearance and has nothing to do with the rest of my gender identity in this case, and things like that. And so the fights have come because like all the appearance stuff, it goes without her approval.
Okay.
Like I didn't ask her before I cut my hair. It just, I came back home with the haircut, and she was like very angry about it. And also like the clothes, it's like, well, I have some money from my like what do you call that, mesada, like the money you get like every month.
Yeah. The mesada.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so like I would, part of that money would go to like clothes that I actually like, and so she would be mad about it. So things like that. It's kind of, it feels like she doesn't want me to be
Yourself. You would say.
myself, like as an individual, like independent from
Okay, so you mentioned that she was angry with your appearance, your haircuts, the decisions that you've made regarding that, and how does that reaction made you feel in that moment?
Well, I guess in the moment, it just like my reaction was just like being angry and like being like, ah, well, whatever, like I don't care. But once that settled, it was like rejection, you know. It's like,
Yeah.
this is me. Like, why can you just like take me as I am, or as I want to be in this case?
So now you've mentioned that this this version is you and what you want to be. So, what do you want to be, or what are your concept? What is your concept about yourself? Like taking apart the situation of your mother.
So it's like, well, like gender for me, it's always been, how do you say that? Like foggy. It's not like a
It's not black and white.
right.
Okay.
Yeah, it's always been like, this is like for example, one of my biggest conclusions of life right now is that like, what the fuck is gender? Like, what does it mean to be inside in either category? Because it's like what makes you a woman? Like, what makes you a man? You know? So that's a weird concept for me, but I never really expressed it and up until now. And so when I got to the conclusion of like, okay, so if my genitals don't define me as that, my appearance doesn't define me as that, then I can do whatever the fuck I want with my appearance and it's fine. It's just like now I see it not as a marker of my gender for myself, because other people will code me as whatever they want, but I see it more like a form of expression maybe. And also to express exactly that maybe this is not a black and white situation, it's more like a foggy gray area thingy, you know. That's kind of where I stand in that regard. And so this, like, my expression is more like pointing towards that.
Okay. So before and when we started to talk, you mentioned these things about your mother. You said that there are other aspects in your life happening right now, and the emotional part with your mother is like something adding up. But I want to talk a little bit more about those aspects, other aspects that you mentioned before. Give me more details about that.
Okay. So the other aspects are, of course, that I'm almost done with the university, and I also have concerns with that, like, because I finished classes this semester, but then I won't get my diploma until like October or December.
Okay.
And so, so it's kind of like I'm worried, as in like, what am I gonna do until I have a diploma and like people can actually hire me for that. So that's been really stressful, like trying to figure that out. And also, like, I recently went through like a major breakup of like a relationship that I had for 3 years.
Okay.
And so that was very hard and very like, it took a toll on me emotionally. It was like, because I work at the same place with that person, so
Okay.
I see her every single day.
Up until now.
Yes.
Okay.
Like, so yeah. Like, lately we've been seeing each other less and less, but like, it's like we do frequently see each other anyway, so that has like, I guess, interrupted with the process of healing and like mourning and like all that. So it's kind of like going through that breakup and feeling like shit and like overthinking stuff about that, plus overthinking stuff about my last semester and like what's gonna happen after that, plus having my mom like just like jump on me every time she can and be like, everything is wrong with you. It's
Okay, so you've mentioned a lot of things that are happening right now in your life. One of them is the fact that you're ending up your semester, your career, and you're getting the diploma afterwards, and you don't know what to do in this period of time, plus the fact that you just ended up like a pretty important relationship, I would say that was for you, and the healing process was kind of interrupted because you have to see every day like this person. So plus the fact that you have this problems with your mother. You mentioned a lot overthinking, and would you say that it's like a characteristic of you, or it's just it started recently, this overthinking process?
Yeah, I would say it started recently, because like I always think stuff, not necessarily think through before I do something. It's just like like I like to think and reflect on stuff.
Okay.
But it was never like an anxious thing.
Okay.
I think it after like in the ending of the relationship, and then when we broke up, and after, that's when it started to be not a problem necessarily, but like, you know, like you would stay up at night thinking about all the things you did wrong in the relationship and all the things the other person did wrong, and like why it didn't work and all that. But I don't feel like it's like a problem. And then with the thesis and stuff, it's like, well, overthinking. Well, I don't know if there's actually an overthinking in the situation where I'm like, really don't know where to go.
Okay.
So I kind of need to think a lot about it.
Okay, so you would say that the most, the process of overthinking a lot was related even more to the fact of the thesis and the university stuff. And you also like think about all the things that happened through your relationship and that. Give me more details about when it started, like months, kind of a date. Maybe?
Yeah. So we broke up in May of last year. So it's almost been like a complete year after, and it's still happening.
Okay.
It's been throughout all this year that it's happened. So last semester it got really bad. Because like I told you, I saw her every day, like all that. And it got worse the moment she started a new relationship.
Okay.
And so I was like seeing them too. And so like kind of like projecting all my insecurities on that new person. Because I kind of knew her before, so it was like
hard for you?
Yeah, I would say. Yeah, I think maybe hard is also like an understatement, maybe, because it was like very painful to see that, and like to overthink that. It was more like, oh, this person has like more money than me, or this person like, I don't know, like even things like she fucks better than me, so maybe you know.
Those thoughts.
Yeah, and it's kind of like irrational because one, you don't know that, and second of all, it's like, oh, she didn't fall in love with you because you had money or you didn't, you know?
Yeah.
It's kind of that. But even though like I know the rational things, like the overthinking, like I want to call it like intrusive thoughts, because sometimes like I'm washing dishes and it's like, it hits me like, they're together.
Just start over.
Yeah.
Okay, so you told me that this popped out or started a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
And do you think that this kind of triggered your anxiety, and afterwards it happened everything about your thesis, or how could you relate those topics in your life?
Like my thesis and the breakup?
Yeah. Do you think there's a relationship between those, or what
I
do you think triggered?
Well, I think actually the thesis helped redirection all that.
Okay.
And
So it was positive, you would say?
Yeah, I think it's definitely positive. Because, like, last semester, I was taking all these bullshit classes that I didn't care about. I think drawing was the class that I, like, actually cared about. And so, like, I took all this bullshit class, so I had a lot of time to overthink stuff. Mm-hmm. And, like, yes, it did make me very anxious. Like, for example, I've always been, like, since my teen years, I've been like a social smoker, but it's like a cigarette smoker. But like chill, you know, like we're at a party, someone offers me a cigarette, I'm like, oh yes, for sure, but like one or two maybe. But then last semester it was like, it was kind of like the first time where I bought like my first
pocket.
Yeah,
Okay.
and like, oh no. Okay, still going.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And so it was the first time where I was like bought my own cigarettes, and like maybe they would last like a week and a half. So I was like smoking 2 to 3 or 4 a day, like because I felt anxious and I didn't know what to do, and like I just wanted to like feel something that wasn't anxiety.
Okay.
Yeah. So kind of like having my thesis, because I had to do everything in one semester.
Okay.
Kind of like just was this external factor that just like had me sit down and be like, okay, you need to finish this shit up because you don't have more time. And like, you need to be done by April, and it's February.
Okay.
You know, so that helped me like concentrate on something else.
Okay. So right now I've seen that, and correct me if I'm wrong. The topic of your thesis was kind of something that excites you, maybe because it changed the your mood. I was at right now. We were kind of. Talking.
Right. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
I didn't notice
so,
that.
so you would say that it was something positive, as
Yeah,
you mentioned
yeah,
before.
definitely.
And how's that going right now?
It's done now. So yeah, the thesis is pretty much done. There's only the last corrections due. So it's finally like a weight off my shoulders. And yeah, there's just some minor fixing to do, and that's...
Okay, and how are you feeling about that, the fact that you finished?
Well, first of all, like relieved. Finally, like I don't have to spend every week now we're doing that.
Okay.
And also, I guess like kind of what you mentioned, like the excitement, because like during the summer I'm planning to maybe like do a pilot, because my thesis on the method is like interviews.
Okay.
So like I'm thinking of doing the pilot interview in the summer, but also making it a documentary with a friend. So it's kind of like an exciting project, you know?
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're having a project this summer, and you're pretty excited, as you told me.
Yes.
And has this fact of finishing your thesis in a point impact your anxiety? Do you have like more time about thinking more stuff, or does your anxiety decrease in the last period?
Well, like I think the anxiety has maintained over all this time. It's just like a different coping mechanism, I think. Like, for example, I just turned in the thesis. Like before that, it was like hell, because I was in that and I was like doing all my school like the homework and bullshit that I need to do, but also like I'm part of the directive board of a group, so that's kind of like work to do and all the responsibilities. So, like for example, last week or 2 weeks ago, like it was like the most distressing week because I had to organize all these events, but also turn in all the final stuff for my thesis, and so it's like it was too much. So like the anxiety was still there.
Okay.
And even like tomorrow, I think, because I have a class, like a bullshit class that is stressing me out. Because I still need good grades, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you've talked to me about that how this anxiety has maintained, and I want describe to me how is your experience with anxiety? How do you feel it?
Yeah, it's like I get restless. Like my muscles don't tense per se, but it's like I feel like I should be moving.
Okay.
It's kind of like that impulse to run.
Okay.
I think so. It's like your muscles are not tense yet, but they're anticipating being tense.
Okay.
And that's kind of like physically, and sometimes I would feel like I don't know how to describe, like a thing in my stomach that feels like, ooh, I don't know, like, and yeah, like my thoughts would be like racing, like sometimes I'm like thinking like 15 things at once, and I'm like, okay, so but what of those things put in my calendar and my to-do list, and like it gets messy, I think.
Okay. So you mentioned that your thoughts are like going 100 per hour.
Yeah.
I'd say. Um, Tell me, do you think that this has been dysfunctional in a way, or have you been functioning the same way than before?
Mm, up until now, it hasn't been dysfunctional. Like, I don't know how I've been able to maintain, like, the things that I have to do, like homework and like thesis, like good. I wouldn't say like I've done like wow my best job at all the things. Like I've just been able to like keep everything where it needs to be.
Okay.
Yeah. So I wouldn't say it's functional.
It's not functional, you say.
I wouldn't call it dysfunctional.
Okay.
So it is functional.
Okay. So you are able to go through your stuff regarding this. I want to go back a little bit more about the first thing that you told me about your mother.
Mm-hmm.
So you also told me that when this fight start, you leave and you go, and the moment that she starts bringing up another things that you think, and you also mentioned that you feel angry when that happens,
Mm.
and